it's one of those nights. It's going to be one of those nights tonight. I apologise for our tardiness in the lateness of the hour. 2 minutes before we were due to start, Mark messaged me and said he had got a migraine. I hope you're feeling a little bit better, Mark. They can be buggers when you get them. And I had to try and find somebody to come and help me out, dig me out of the proverbial shit, as they say. And thankfully, well, he's turning into my lover this week. I'm spending so long with him. And that's Wayne. Don't tell Jeremy. But no, it's I've got to thank him for coming on. Anyway, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello. Wherever you are in the world, one of those has surely got to apply to you. It is the back pages. We are looking at this week's news, rounding it up. You can probably guess what we're going to be starting with. It's all in one place. All the news you want is here. Get your comments in as you go along. They will appear on the screen. Do please keep them respectful, though, because they do go on the screen. If you are listening via your favourite podcast platform, whatever that happens to be, thank you, very glad. And if you're watching on catch-up, add your thoughts in the description below on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe if you're new, and click that notification bell. Let's get this train on the tracks. My God, I sound like Tony Blackburn, don't I? Good evening, and thank you so much, Wayne.
Evening, Chris. Excuse me, I'm just eating a couple of salt and vinegar crisps, mate.
You carry on, mate, because you've come in. If you've not had your meal, that is fine. You've helped me out here. We've spent a lot of time together this week.
We have, and it's surprising, Chris, because basically in the world of football, hardly anything's happened, has it?
A few minor things, and nothing that you should feel you've got to get worried about at all. I don't think, but yes. Well, let's start with the obvious one, shall we?
Prediction League? No.
No. That was last night. Keep up. Leicester City charged over PSR breach. But the 22-23 ones, which we successfully appealed, they then appealed our appeal, but that's now concluded, and that's gone out of the figures anyway. I feel like they were determined to get us and make an example of us.
Definitely, and when you had Kieran Maguire on, you talked the old moral, ethical side of it, and the way the Premier League and they're infighting with the Football League is going about this is unfair, but it is. I mean, like you said, we signed up for it. We agreed with it, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's like a man on death row signing up to start the death penalty again. I mean, it's just the most stupid thing. And I mean, I made the point, and obviously, look, I've done a few shows. I did one with Rob Tanner on Wednesday, one with Kieran Tuesday afternoon. So do please catch up with those. And of course, we talked about it on Fox's forum as well. So we have gone into it in a lot of detail. But, you've got these rules that now the EFL and the Premier League are both agreeing to. But did the EFL clubs, did they all have a vote?
Do you know what? It's interesting. They've got a new task force, hopefully unifying all the Football League, because he reckons he wants to share it out. But And he was one behind securing a lot of the TV deals. So I think he knows what he's on about. But it's like anything, when politicians get in, like Ruud van Nistelrooy, Steve Cooper, you promise the world, and then you see what nuts and bolts they're actually doing. So a lot of fans, it's like the new son-in-law and grandson sport. Newcastle, they can't spend the money. In fact, they said they were either going to have to sell Isak or Anthony Gordon, who all the Newcastle fans loved. Luckily, they sold a couple of players for £20 million each. Anderson to Palace. But you think in Newcastle, great, they can challenge the big boys, shake things up a bit. And yet they were faced with selling one of their two main players because of PSR. And you're thinking, like you said, Chris, about the Chelsea selling the women's team to the Souls, you think, and Man City, what's happening to the Chargers? Thinking, what the hell is happening here?
This is it. And I know we sort of, we've played this tune so many times, we've worn it out, but it does all still feel like they're picking on not just Leicester, Everton, I will include in this, Nottingham Forest, I will include in this, teams that aren't in the big six, so to speak. And it just feels like, okay, we've overspent. We know we've got the money because we've got, owners that can afford to do that. And I do get, and we said the other night, didn't we? I do get that there is a reason, why they want to keep spending under control when you look at the likes of Reading and you look at the likes of Bury. And so I do get it. But why aren't they picking on Chelsea? Because surely they need to close. Yes, they've closed the loophole that we exposed, and I guess that was always going to happen. But surely they've got to be looking at the way Chelsea do business. How the hell can you sell something to yourself and that account towards your income or whatever? That has got to be as dodgy as hell. Don't get me wrong. They're not breaking any rules by doing it, so fair play to them. But morally, it's wrong, and those are some of the windows that they should be shutting as well.
Yeah, and what's that Jordan and that chat show that you like? But you quoted him, didn't you? You played the clip from the TalkSport.
Oh, yes, Jim White and Simon Jordan.
Simon Jordan, that's right. And Simon Jordan, the first time when City escaped from through a loophole, the loophole that the rules that were set in place, he sort of really went after Leicester during that time. And the one thing he did in that show, which he played a clip from, he did actually mention that City and other teams like Chelsea, because at the time he didn't mention Chelsea, he didn't mention Man City. And he did actually do that, but he still sort of thinks that we are being really, really almost like a evil team, manipulative, tax dodging, everything. Whereas anybody who knows anything about business, that all the top businesses like Vodafone, Apple, they all have companies in Ireland, offshore companies to avoid paying tax.
Google.
All the big companies get away. It's the people that are rank and file, pay as you earn. They pay the full tax, and it's the big companies get away with the most tax because they can afford the expensive accountants. And it's accountants that get you off.
Oh
tax,
yes. I get a little bit of income from YouTube, which helps just sort of cover some of the cost of doing the shows, and that comes from Google Ireland.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because I did have to fill in a tax form for Google America. I'm not quite sure how it works, but but Google Ireland, I guess, is their European head office. But it still feels like one rule for one rule for the other. And I look, if we've broken it, and we obviously have, that's fine. But don't just keep picking on the smaller clubs.
Yeah, and did you reference the guy who was in the Premier League meeting when Leicester won the Premier on one of the top clubs, and he says we can't be having teams like Leicester win because they're no good for our Premier brand name around the world.
It was actually, and in fairness, it wasn't anybody from the FA or the Premier League. Yeah. It was actually somebody allegedly from one of the big six. And now I'm not mentioning any names at all, Manchester City, but I'll leave you to work it out. So I'm literally, look, we've dropped off the worst of the bit, because that 22-23, we're over 100 million over, has now dropped out the figures because it's a 3-year rolling contract. My feeling now is just pay it and get it over with. All we're going to do if we appeal again is probably, I mean, they said about 12 points. Rob Tanner says up to 12 points to really, really make an example of us. And I do think it's bad that they're saying we're being charged with not being compliant, and all we're doing is defending ourselves and appealing. That, again, that's another thing that gets me with the Premier League. It's like, yeah, and to quote Gary Lineker here, it's like Nazi Germany.
It is an interesting, and remember the wording that Kuntop said about, we're disappointed with the findings. We're going to fight it because we believe that, we tried in good faith to try and challenge the top of the Premier, which is kind of what the Premier, that's what's labelled as, that anybody can have a go.
Yes.
And we're getting penalised for doing it, and that's the wording at the time. Interestingly, a lot of people love the Leicester story. It's like this season. So you've got Newcastle won the cup, won the sort of Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
Tottenham have won a European Cup and amazingly in the Champions League. And Crystal Palace have won the first trophy since the year dot.
Yes.
We all love that. It's like Nottingham Forest, are they our arch enemy in local like Derby? But do we love the fact that they were shaking it up at the top, because that's what we did, and people, the fans of other teams liked it, and so most fans of most teams want that, and they realise it's not a fair thing. So
it isn't, no.
Don't you admire people standing up and shaking things up?
You do, but like I say, to think that, well, if I'm going to appeal this, I'm going to get more, I'm going to be punished more. Not because and we'll come on to a bit of a delaying tactic in a minute, but because we actually didn't bow cow and go, sorry, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Yes, I'll do that, sir. And we actually said, we're not sure about this. We want to take it to court. I just don't. I just think, like I say, it is very, very unfair to all clubs, in fairness, when you think about it. Michael's in. Hi, Michael. How you doing? Do get your comments in on the different stories as we go through. We won't necessarily read them all out, but as you can see, they do come up in the bottom right-hand side. Okay, one of the things we were charged with was the accounts that had to be in by the 24th of by the 31st of December 2024. Were we in the Championship then? No, we weren't, were we? We were in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And we had to get some figures in. Now, I didn't realise this. This is something that was told to me by Kieran Maguire from the Price of Football podcast. The accountants signed those accounts off on the 19th of December.
Yeah.
Susan Whelan signed those accounts off on the 19th of December. Now, if Deliveroo can get me a full roast meal from Toby in 35 minutes, how come it took over 2 weeks and went past deadline for us to get some accounts from Leicester to the FA headquarters in London?
Well, either somebody's not checking the pending tray or the outgoing tray, or normally when it comes to tax, that is a delay tactic, isn't it?
It is, but excuse me, Susan, we are, we've just had to go to court to get away with it, and here you are pushing the boundaries again. And you're supposed to be this amazing businesswoman. I don't think if that's what you're doing, that you've got the sense to wipe your arse, to be honest with you. Businesswoman OBE, you're a joke, because there's no way they should have been in late and have that charge hanging over our head as well.
No, and to be honest, Chris, I've got VAT registered business, and basically if you go through difficult times and you get a customer, you invoice somebody for £10,000, and they don't pay your bill, including VAT, you still have to pay that VAT to the government. And if you, during your quarterly period, if you don't pay that within 30 odd days of submitting your VAT return, you get a 10% surcharge. If you then do it for the next accounting quarterly period, you get 15% surcharge, and it goes up. And then the next time, if you do it again, you get a 20% surcharge. So there are always consequences for not submitting within the time frames of the rules, basically. So if Susan Whelan's a business person, she would know that. And one thing I did find interesting with your chat with Rob Tanner is the fact that Susan Whelan was really helping. She was part of a lot of the success of the football side of Leicester, although originally she was a business person. And that she's did he say she's been marginalised, and there's rumours that she hasn't spoken
on the business side now,
for 2 years. So that does make sense, actually.
It kind of does, but that still doesn't excuse what's going on at the club at the moment. Because you've got loyalty to a certain point, and look at what he did with Rob Tanner, not Rob Tanner, sorry, you just mentioned him. What he did with Brendan Rodgers. Easy to get the two mixed up. But, he delayed and he delayed. He was too loyal, and it cost him. He probably wasn't loyal enough with Steve Cooper, and it cost him. And look, you can have the best business in your area doing whatever, and, you particularly do. But then for some reason, let's say you lose a big contract or you do something bad and your business goes down and suddenly you're not as successful. And then bosses are going to look at that and go, why isn't it successful? Why was this guy making all these sales last year and he's not this year? And you either train people up or basically you get rid of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really interesting what this next phase for Cuntop is the real interesting one. So you had the COVID, which decimated that business, and I knew somebody that worked for the Range, and the Range during COVID made record profits because everybody was on furlough, everybody was at home being paid for being at home, and everybody built garden rooms. So the Range, the owner of the Range, he went to be a super rich person because they had a fantastic. Whereas the King Power, duty free, they were really affected, and then you had a loss of his dad. And I think with the dynamics of Susan Whelan, I'd love to be a fly on the wall. So maybe her being removed more has had serious consequences. But the bottom line is, it like business review. Every business does it, whether you got a 50 grand a year business or 50 million or 50 billion. You have to do the review. Yeah. So will Top do the review? And like Pipe said, we went to a live event last Saturday night, and Pipe said his question is to Top: do you want the fight, and do you want to take control of this club and guide it the way, or would you rather play polo with your mates?
Yeah,
and that sort of thing. And he says that's the question that Top
he can do both if he's got the right people in situ
exactly
to look after it. Now, without getting personal, because I don't know Wayne, but is your dad still alive?
No.
Nor is my dad. My dad has passed as well. When your dad passed, did your business go down the pan?
No,
because you probably had to get on with it, didn't you? Because you've got to provide for, your family and extended family. When my dad died, it didn't affect. Yes, you have a bit of time off. Obviously, you did. So all this poor old coon, and I'm going to get lots of hate for this. But I'm getting so pissed off with his dad died. So everybody's fucking dad dies. Yes, he did it in bad circumstances. We're sorry and we miss him. I loved him and all this, that. But how long, in 30 years' time, are we still going to be saying if he's in charge, well, remember, don't forget his dad died? I mean, at some point we've got to say life goes on.
Yeah, I hear you, Chris. I think what it is with that is the combination of his dad dying, COVID, and the fact that his dad was the main decision maker. So I do think that combination was very heavy, and that'll be a lot to unpick. And maybe with Susan Whelan being marginalised, I don't think he's made the right decisions. He has made a lot of mistakes. Not sorting out a director of football to handle the contracts, which has been it's been a ridiculous mess. But I do, it's whether he's got the intelligence now, or he's got the heart, as Pipe says, to take on the fight. So we have made mistakes. We have made serious mistakes. And like Ronaldo's son won't ever be as good a footballer as Ronaldo. For somebody to say, you're Ronaldo's son, be as good as Ronaldo. Why aren't you as good as your dad? He's never going to be as good as his dad. So maybe Top isn't as good as Vishai at running the club.
The other argument to play devil's advocate was Casper as good as I've forgotten his name. What was his dad called?
Peter.
Peter, yeah, was Casper as good as Peter? I do know
he was as fiery as his dad, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, that's true. But again, look, he's got a very large family. So if you're an only child and you lose your dad, that's bad enough. But the vice CEO, chairman, whatever you want to call him, is his brother. Now, what does he do? Get the responsibility and you move over, because stop being awful. His brother can't do any worse than Top. But look, it's been in the news. We're fucked again. But that's a technical term, by the way. That is a footballing term.
Yeah.
But let us.
I'll just Google what you meant by that, Chris.
To be fucked in a football term. But no, let's accept it this time.
Yeah.
It's a 3-year rolling cycle, so it's still going to be around for a couple of years, and it will just go on and on and on. Let's accept it, put it to bed, and just get on with life. I wish.
What you said, you used the analogy of if you got a speeding fine, get the bloody thing paid and get on with it. Yeah,
exactly. Go, and even if you sleep through the video thing that you've done, just turn up and do it. Look, the other big news this week, of course, he's gone. Ladies and gentlemen, Vardy has left the building. Yes, he has. You may notice it is a little thing that happened. And just to say, everybody, next Wednesday, I'm doing a special show with Matthew. And we're going to be looking back at Jamie Vardy's 13 seasons with the club. The man, the myth, the legend. So do look out for that. But look at that, 13 seasons, 500 appearances, 200 goals, one iconic picture. That was a picture to end with. At least he didn't kick the post corner flag to bits. There will never be another Jamie Vardy, will there?
No, there won't. And like we say, we've been trying to replace Jamie Vardy. That will never happen. In the Premier, he's a very unique striker. He's got a great skill set. He can finish in any way you can possibly think. Finish volleys, chips over the keeper, dinks over the keeper. I mean, I did watch the goals he scored for England, and was it Nathaniel Klein? He sort of crossed the ball in low, and Vardy got in front of the defender and just backheeled it, put his 3 legs, backheeled it. And you think, you cheeky, and he scored a similar one against Edson for Man City when we beat 5-2 at the Etihad during COVID when the stadium was empty. You look at his goals. You go on YouTube and watch his goals, and you just sit there mesmerised and just watch them all.
Yeah, and Harry Kane, if you are listening, you may want to cover your ears now, because I'm just going to tell you what Jamie Vardy. Football of the Year 2016. 2 times top goal scorers, once in the conference, fair enough, and once in the Premier League with 23 goals. 1 times Player of the Year, 15-16 in the Premier League. 1 times Premier League title. 1 time English FA Cup winner. And as we discussed before, 1 time English Super Cup winner. Yes, that's what we'd call it. Yeah. And 2 English second-tier champions. And he's won a lot more than that when he won, fair few bits when he was at Fleetwood. What I mean, this guy, 25 years old when we signed him.
Yeah. Was he 27 before he got in the Premier League? I think 27 was his first season.
Before he got in the Premier League, yes, he had. Because that first season, I've literally just done the artwork because we're doing season by season. He played 26 times that first season. May 2012, we signed him. He only got 6 goals. And he even managed more than that this season, didn't he?
Yeah, there is that report. I did watch, the David Rennie, who Pearson, when I watched there's a video on YouTube and it's about 47 minutes he's being interviewed and he talks about his early life, his experiences, how he learned stuff in the NHS and his journey and how he came to Leicester. And they said Leicester got an injured player and he was always getting injured and said, look, can you do something with him? And he did it. Then he was part of the staff and then he got made head and it was Pearson brought in the looking at the overall as an athlete, a person, holistically, how they're doing, support for the family. And that David Rennie, and interestingly, then he said Brendan Rodgers came along and gave him, go and get your stuff, you're out of here. Rodgers, he changed all the stuff, didn't he?
Yes.
But Rennie was responsible for Leicester being a side that hardly had any injuries and we played a very settled side. But interestingly, he said he recounts when Vardy was first signed, he said he literally he didn't think he was going to make it. And he went and he said Shaky and Pearson, they convinced him to stay. He literally said, I don't think I can cut it at this level. Coming from non-league and everything. Yeah. He's always got confidence in his finishing, but he struggled because he's still going out.
Yes, he was.
All that sort of thing. And the basis said, look, you can do it, but you've got to change your approach to playing professional football. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just a pub guy playing football. Exactly. He was turning up to train, half cooked and everything, and he's just. But they convinced him, and if they hadn't done, the Vardy story probably would never have happened. But they got him to clean his act up. He really got viewed things, and was it Nugent got him to like slow down and breathe when he's in the box. He wanted to smash everything, put his laces through everything. He got him to work on his finishing, and
yeah. I think as well. I think Vichai had a bit to do as well. I think he put his arm around him, and at the end of the match, it was nice to see. He really had a genuine hug for Top, didn't he?
He did, yeah, he did. And that's the thing with that moment between the both of them. It's with regards to chanting. I heard what Craig said, and I just think it's okay having your opinion about stuff, but that was such a special time, and it's a kind of way of saying goodbye, providing the fans, and Top was a real big part of that.
Yes, yes, he was.
And you can tell it's like when Top was dragged. Who dragged Top to when we won the FA Cup?
Casper,
yeah. So he's quite a humble. He's not there saying, "Yeah, look what we've won." He was happy to be in the background, but he comes across as a really nice guy, doesn't he? So that was a nice touch.
Yes, yeah. What did you think before we move on to the other news? Then, what did you think? Because look, we do know there's a section of the crowd that is not very happy with what's going on, and we're all not. And I always said, sort of, look, I will never boo a player when he comes on the pitch or boo a player when he goes. I will wait until the end of the game, when there's no match going on, because I think then it's fair game. But this was Vardy's moment, and yet you had a section of the crowd, and we all know who that is, that was sort of going on about, the board and Rudkin and Whelan. There's a time and a place. And even like the Athletic, Rob, when he wrote, they were picking up on it. Well, that's not what we want to be reading. We want to be reading about Jamie Vardy and the celebration of his time at Leicester.
Yeah, and I do. So, with regards to like how Leicester have done this season, I do think the younger element on social media, not all young, but I think that social element. Social media is quite judgmental. It's very judgmental. You know, a lot of people have strong opinions and they deliver them in ways they wouldn't normally do in everyday life. It's an abstract, unusual medium, and arguments become inflamed. People get so strong, and I think that's added to the thing. It's like Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool. I mean, a lot of Liverpool fans are so grateful for him, but he's been booed, and Slot has been asked about, do you think you ought to play Trent Alexander-Arnold in the last match at home because in case there's booing? And you're thinking, that is a real shame, that is. And you know, I just don't get that level of ultra criticism and ultra nastiness, and sometimes it overspills into awful racist, you know, the way some people have been treated online, and that level of human behaviour is I don't find acceptable, Chris.
There's a time and a place, and I respect everybody's ability to moan and complain. This is what these channels are like. Not just this, but there's a lot of Leicester channels out there. You can go on there and have your say. Quite often we're the ones that are sort of moaning and what have you as hosts. But no, that was sort of uncalled for. Sticking with Vardy, kind of, but moving on. Rude one Van Nistelrooy. You can tell I've been typing a lot, and I've missed the R off player. This one didn't go very well at all, did it? Rude Van Nistelrooy suggested it will be a new signing up front next term rather than an existing player.
That's Scandinavian. That's Scandinavian, isn't it? That's
it is. I even yes. I think, you know, Vardy's gone. And I think it does give everybody now a clean sheet. You haven't got that, you know, albatross around your neck of, oh my God, Jamie Vardy's on the bench waiting to come on sort of thing. And look, he was played too much this season. And it was the fact that we didn't get the ball to him often enough. But whether we will be able to buy another striker or not is another matter. But we have got the youngsters coming through, haven't we? And do you think it's right now? I mean, you know, Van Nistelrooy's come out and said this. We don't know whether he's stopping or going. We'll come on to that in a minute. But this was probably actually, I think, put out before the PSR things. But I do think that it's a bit like Alex Ferguson. Couldn't believe that Alex Ferguson was actually going down into the dressing room when other managers are trying to do their post-match talks. You're thinking, God almighty. Do you know what I mean?
That is crazy.
It's like having a little devil on your shoulder, isn't it? Don't say that. Yeah. So I think in a way, thank you, Jamie, you've gone out. And I think, you know, hopefully, because that is an area we need to look at, the strikers, isn't it?
Yeah, and I did watch the press conference today, and I've watched the last few, and you can tell that he's been asked, what do you think about Jamie Vardy? What do you think he means to the club? And you know, if you're getting those questions asked all the time, you've got to be thinking, oh, just please don't ask me any more about Jamie Vardy. And he's a club legend, but he's got a job to do. And I do think Rude is probably relieved in a way. And sometimes, well, you know, when someone's in a press conference and they're talking, I'm thinking, yeah, you do sound like you're relieved it's over, and that you feel that because you can tell with him in the last few press conferences, he definitely wants the job. He wants the project, and he wants to be given the chance. And I bet he's just thinking, you know what, if I did get the chance, the fact that Jamie Vardy's moved on is a really good thing for the club, because it then, like you said before, does it then give space to the younger kids? The one thing I'd say about it is that Vardy can still finish. To get 9 goals this season in a team that's been woeful and couldn't get the ball up to him through midfield is quite remarkable, and it could go to somewhere like Arsenal, I think. But yeah, I think it will be a new signing, and interesting because he was interested in Daka, wasn't he? When he was at PSV, he was following Daka, and he must say to one of his mates, "Hey, you've got Daka at Leicester, have you? Right? So, what do you think? You don't go out with him?" He'd probably say, "Don't even ask about Daka."
No. But then, do you think that? And I understand why that was Jamie Vardy's last game, because it was at home and what have you. But we're going to... All right, this is going to come back and bite me on the bum, but we're going to be shit without him at Bournemouth, aren't we?
It's like when Gary Lineker left Leicester, Muzzy is it left, all the like Maddison left Leicester. Vardy's unique in all of those.
But they never left in the middle of a season unless they were sold. This guy is we're still paying him, and yet he's like on gardening leave. Well, we're still paying him. Why isn't he playing? He could have done all that, had all that celebration, and still go to Bournemouth and play.
Yeah, I think probably Ruud van Nistelrooy was saying, because he said he's had a discussion with the board about what he thinks Leicester need to do going forward, and he's also started to mention regularly in the press conferences that as soon as we were relegated and as soon as we knew we were relegated and weren't held responsible to try and stay up, that's when I changed the narrative and I changed the way we could play. I told the board we were going to bring the youngsters in. We're going to develop things for next season. So that's the way he's wording his press conferences now. So I do think he said he's been to the board and he said this is what we need to do next season. Mm. And when Owen Palmer asked him, so does that mean that you still don't know you're going to be here next season? He said, no, I don't. And he says, well, isn't that kind of awkward? He says, well, yes, it is. I would like to know, but that's the way it is. But I'm just focused on building things for next season and doing my best. So I do think he's got ideas, and I think he's gone to the board and pitched that. And the board are chewing things and thinking things through. But please, as we said, Chris, don't have Russell Martin.
Well, we'll come on to this. Ruud van Nistelrooy, this started out as a bit of a trickle earlier in the week. Then it was picked up by the big boys. And look, if anybody's actually watches these social media posts that I put out, which are exactly the same as this, please don't put a comment in saying what's the source. Bye, mate. Have you gone?
Oh, just switching the light on.
Oh, that's all right. Sorry, mate. I thought you'd gone. Yeah, please don't ask the source. There's a clue there. Hey, we've got an old friend in Leicester City down under, mate. How are you doing?
Hey.
Good day to you. I had a quick look at you earlier. Yes, I am that stalker.
I wonder what Luke's been saying about the season.
Well, let's put it this way: you can't tell because every other word's bleeped out. But the rumours are this is his last game. Unfortunately, Ruud, nobody's going to be sorry, are they?
No. Game of golf.
Yeah. I've no idea. It's early in the morning. He's probably over there in Australia. He's probably had about 4 tinnies already. But like I say, there's going to be nobody crying into their Bovril, are they? If he is sacked after the game.
It's cool, mate. No, it is interesting. Rob Tanner did say, I do think Ruud. I think he froze under the headlights. I think things went more difficult than he thought. And he didn't really have the balls to make the decision to bring the younger kids in earlier or to change formation or to tell the team to be 10 yards further up the pitch or he just played too defensively. And that's what we said. He's kind of playing the Cooper way and being quite stubborn with his selection. And that's what's caused a lot of ill feeling in the fan base. But Rob Tanner did say, I think he's had a harsh lesson. And I do think that's the case. I think it's far harder than he thought it was going to be. I think then he froze and he didn't have the guts to make the decisions that all his fans could see he needed to make. And that's the reason why, if he'd have played the young ones like Luke said or Locks that you and Craig have been saying and Kate, the fans will get behind him because
you start defending him now just because you've read his book.
No, I haven't read his book, actually. I still can't bring myself to read his book. But I do think, it's like to say, do you think Ruud should be in next season? I'd say no. But if you're going to bring someone like initials are RM, then I'd say keep Ruud, because do I think that sometimes you have to really go through an acid test to get your ass kicked to then wise up a bit? And I think, is this Ruud wising up? Maybe.
there's this guy that's also
No,
being
no.
heavily linked, but he is. I've got it. I can't, Luke, mate. I appreciate the offer, but I've got it all set up with the with the shapes and everything. But thank you very much. We'll have to do something soon. In the Burnley Express, and I know the guy that writes this, because obviously I worked at the Burnley Express for 10 years, and he doesn't write, BS, but he's, and I suppose, again, this is just standard stuff, isn't it? He's more than happy to remain patient and wait for the right opportunity. I understand why people want him, because I wanted him at one point, and look, Manny kind of converted me. He talked me down. But I just wonder if, and this is what something that the Dan the Burnley fan was saying. Did he play the way that he played because that was the sort of player that they had at Burnley?
Yeah, I get that, and apparently he was good at. He did try and bring the youth through at different times when he's had those available. I mean, I was going to say, is he Max or Paddy, Chris? Phoenix night, a bit Phoenix night.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
I mean, the trouble is when Maresca was a real left field appointment. Yeah, left field appointment. But then when you get a sacking, you get all these same old managers talked about, and I really think we've got to think outside the box. And as Craig has said, and other people on other channels, we need a coach, we need a football director to guide things on the type of players we want to fit the system, and we need a coach. But Brendan Rodgers sports a lot of that. I mean, he really tried to he took control of virtually everything, Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
Goodness me, he was a megalomaniac. And like I said,
I get that, because I've always said, if you're a manager, if I'm going to manage a club or manage a team, as I did in sales, I want to have the final say on who's in that team. Because I don't want you foisting a player or a member, which happened when I was in sales, foisting somebody on me that I didn't know, I didn't interview. All they knew was that somebody was leaving, and I needed a replacement. And it was obvious from day one that this guy was not going to get on with the rest of the team. His CV ticked all the right boxes. But to be honest with you, he didn't even finish out of his probation.
No, Cooper.
And had I been in that interview situation, I would have said, I'm not having him.
Apparently, it was a really good PowerPoint presentation, though, wasn't it, Chris?
Apparently so. Apparently, but no. But that's where I do think the manager has got to have that say, or the final say.
That is true, Chris. Unless you do what Brighton do and you sign certain. I mean, you watched Brighton the other day, and when they played Liverpool, they were phenomenal. They played so athletic, forward-thinking, transition really fast, and very technically very good. So, like I said, Potter left. Oh no, we're going to struggle. Then they lost the next manager, and the next manager comes in, and so they signed a certain.
Is that manager allowed to pick? I mean, you look at Enzo, and you look at Potter when he was at Chelsea. He didn't know who was coming through the door. And you go back to Martin Allen at Leicester, and I forget who the player was when he walked into the stadium that time, and this player was sat. He was quite a well-known player. Was sat down, and he goes, "Oh, hello, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm signing for you." I went, "Are you?" And it was something that Milan Mandzukic wanted to sign. Martin Allen didn't want him because he didn't fit into his plans, and obviously it ended up with Martin Allen leaving. But yeah, I do think they've got to have the final say. Yeah, give them a list of 5 that you can get, but they pick that one out of the 5 that gets the job.
I think it's probably changing, Chris, to be honest, because did you do a show where you worked out the average length of a Premier manager or something like?
No, I did a thing where there's the average length of the Leicester City manager, which was about 16 months, I believe it was.
I think the average is only like 13 months or something bonkers like that.
Yeah.
How many managers? So when you think about that logically, if the manager only stays at a club for a year or 2 years, why would you buy a set of players that just that manager likes? So that's why the Brighton
maybe that manager would do better in those 13 months that he's there if he had the players that he wanted.
I think he probably would, but it is still short. I think it will change, and all clubs will do. You look at all the successful clubs, and they are doing this model where they buy profile of player. They then say to the manager, look, these are the kind of players we have: technical, fast, good on transition, tactically aware, adaptable. Could you work with this group of players? I think it will go that way, Chris, or the clubs that don't will get left behind.
I've just got to say this to you.
Your opinion is wrong.
There you go.
It often is, Chris. It often is.
Yeah. You know I jest. No, look, I can say it's like saying I want to write back. And they go and say, well, look, the one that you've asked for is out of our price range. We can't afford him. But we've got 5 here that we can afford, that we believe are happy to come to the club. And then he'll look at that list and he will pick one from that list.
Yeah.
But he has to have the final say. And he might look at that and go, whoa, he's actually the best player, but he ain't going to play the way that I want him to play. That's why he's got to have the say in. But
I get that, Chris. But also the club could say, yes, you want a left back. You want a right back. Did you say right back or left back, Chris?
I said right back because of.
So what we've got for you, we've got a left back, but we often play him as a right back.
Do not start me. Do not start me. I've been very nice to you because you've come in to help me. Look, Daily Mail have said this, that they believe the deal to appoint Russell Martin is set to be concluded in the coming days. You aren't obviously very happy at that. Manny, well, let's say, if I said Manny was a little bit disappointed, I think that would be an understatement. But he fits into this directive that Manny said he didn't, but I think he does fit into this thing where he plays the style that Enzo played, but he's too stubborn. And look, Enzo nearly blew it being stubborn. Van Nistelrooy, we've seen how stubborn he's been. What we don't want, and yes, as the manager, you've got to kind of make, the decisions. But this is when you need a good director of football to go in and go, for fuck's sake, Rude, you've lost 15 on the trot here. Try something different.
Yeah, and if you work for a company and you was sales and they appointed a sales manager and it was crap and he caused a lot of division, he didn't motivate you, and then he got the push because he wasn't doing a good job. Then they got another sales manager who was crap. You'd then start looking at the management and thinking, well, hang on a minute, they're appointing all these crap sales managers and we're not meeting the target, so I can't afford to take my kids on holiday. So that's the thing. If you appoint a series of bad managers, then that rests on the board, doesn't it? Who's ever making the decision?
It does.
Definitely, Russell Martin is a more stubborn than Enzo. But I think
you just got to look at Russell Martin and go, as shit as Ruud van Nistelrooy was, Russell Martin's even shitter.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's the worrying thing. If they appoint Russell Martin, I view that as deluded.
No, I would agree with you. He's the last person. I'd sooner have Sean Dyche than Russell Martin, because I think whether I like his style of play or not, I think he could sort a few problems out. But it's like going into a shop and going like, I want to buy 2 buckets of shit, please. Can I pay you with 1 bucket of shit? Because that's what we're doing. How no other industry is there where you can be shit at your job and then walk straight into another one.
It's ridiculous. It makes a mockery of the working man. That does it. That is just ludicrous. And the fact that, it's almost like I'm thinking, is it April the 1st? Because a couple of the sources were from reliable sources. And you're thinking, what you got? The board are chatting with a manager that got sacked by the club that's one of the worst clubs in the history of the Premier League, and you're thinking that is like a head explosion job.
Yes, totally, I agree. Don't get me wrong. Look, people get sacked, and I'm not saying that they should never ever work again, but when if you get sacked by Chelsea, and then you're given a job at Manchester United, who then sack you, and you're then given a job at Tottenham, I can presume you guess where I'm going with this. You're thinking, no. Now, if that person then goes to Turkey, let's just say Turkey for some reason, and does reasonably well there, fine, because it's a different environment, different culture, different styles, etc. Or they drop down to the Championship, go to a smaller club. I get that, but look, I was talking about our friend Jose, or was I talking about his brother, Jose B?
And who wins the European final with Roma? Sorry, Chris, say that again.
I said I was talking about Jose, or was it his brother, Jose B?
Oh, that's a hey. I love it, Chris.
That would have been that. Had you not had you heard it the first time, it might have been funny. Oh God, I'm here all week, everybody. Right, this was an interesting one that came out of nowhere. L'Equipe report that Pierre Sage, spicy little Merton he is. I got arrested earlier today.
Did you?
Yeah, I went into the sea naked, except I'd covered myself in. No, I haven't. I can't remember the joke. That would have been. Yeah, that was it. Because I covered myself just in Thousand Island dressing.
Yeah.
The guy said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just taking a dip in the sea." Thousand Island dip? No, never mind. I need to practice that one. I do need to practice that one. He had 14 months in with Leon. He did really well. You see, again, maybe this is the sort of thing we should look at. Left field, like with Enzo.
Especially if he's got an assistant that's called Onion.
Well, he's French. You never know.
And look, well, if on the first game we beat somebody 6-0, so the game was stuffing.
Oh, mate. Oh, I take my hat off to you, sir. I doff my hat. You've been with me too long. That's what it is. I'm just seeing if I can find the information here. Here we go. Oh, former Leon manager, he is. With a managerial change for the new season, likely. French outlet L'Equipe, as you can see there. So this has come from L'Equipe. And obviously, look, it's that time of year. It's silly season as well, now that the season's almost over. We're into the transfer windows. So plenty of clubs have had the 46-year-old on their radar, including City's future championship rivals Southampton and QPR, as well as French side Reims, Toulouse, Reims and Montpellier. They also report that, we'll call him Sarge, shall we? Sarge. Out of work since being sacked by Leon in January, has turned down 2 offers of jobs in the Middle East, and that he may be considered by a number of Ligue 1 clubs who could change their managers this summer. Wherever Chazé goes to next, it will just be the second professional club as a senior manager. I have no problem with that. I don't know. Let me just try and get some information up on him. But he, look at what experience Enzo had.
Yeah, but it's where he came from, isn't it? Enzo worked with the under-21s, was it, Man City, and he was second under Prep. So he'd been around. They just won the chat.
You set them off now. Shardy, smooth operator. Manny, don't you start.
Smooth operator. Oh dear. But with that, so you get linked with all these sort of people. But it's like I don't know anything about him, like what his style is, how he plays, formations.
Funny you should ask that.
That's why I do like Danny Roll, because he does play a high press.
I know his brother. Ham and cheese.
Hey, very good, Chris. Very good.
Here we go. Here we go. I suppose actually the problem if you employ him and we get stuff 6-0, they say we just rolled over and gave in. You started it, mate. You started it. Look, let me get some information up on him here because he's 46 years old. He's a French national. Average term as a coach, 0.76 years. He's got a UEFA Pro license. His preferred formation, God, oh my God, please. 4-3-3 attacking.
Liverpool, yeah, love it.
I mean, he's got he plays 19 matches in Ligue 1. He's won 8, drawn 6, lost 5. He got 30 points. In the Europa League, he played 7, won 4, drawn 2, lost 1. Coupe de France, only 2, whatever that. I presume that's like their League Cup. Yeah. Won 1, lost 1. His average points per match is 1.68. Would we not have loved that number of points this season?
Well, we would, to be honest. And, I do think we need to go for this kind of profile manager. That's the bottom line. We don't want any stubborn people. It's like Pep. We talked about Pep and Pep, like Manny's talked about Pep disciples. But the interesting thing about Pep is he won when he won the Premier without a recognised striker, with Gundogan scoring like 15 goals in one season. That's the genius of Pep. Then what does Pep do? Everybody starts trying to play Pep ball. He signs an absolutely gigantic centre forward called Erling Haaland, who smashed. So Pep does think outside the box. So we need somebody who thinks outside the box, who can be like reactive and proactive. Has got the intelligence to in game. That's the thing with Rude. I think he's lacked some balls and intelligence in games to either one, understand what's happening, to secondly understand solutions, and then have the guts to actually think, right, I'm the manager, it stops with me, let's try something different.
Now,
he didn't do that yet.
Talking about Pierre Sargé, and we're going to do a lot. And if you're in science, if you know science, you do a thing called the litmus test. Here we have a thing called the Manny test, which sounds painful. But what Manny has said is Pierre Sargé is very interesting, well worth serious consideration. Lyon coach and former Lyon Academy coach, where they have lots of exciting young, quick talent brought through a lot of them. I mean, 46, he's young, he likes attacking football. 4-3-3, it's not that different to how we have, Rude and Enzo tried to play, and look, just tweaking it a little bit. I would be very excited if this was to happen. And he's 46, and he could develop his career, and he could make a name. He could look at Leicester and go, okay, they're in the shit. And I think anybody who comes into Leicester, if it goes wrong, he can turn around and say, PSR, I couldn't buy anybody. Look at that, they were shit. Look what Rude left me. If he turns it round, he's going to have the big boys after him.
Yeah, I do think when you think about the disappointment of getting relegated and how we got relegated and the decisions the board have made over who they appointed, when you think about the club, it's a really good young club. It's got a brilliant recent history. It's got a really good loyal fan base. And recently we have appointed some, like Maresca, some left field, and Rodgers was a brilliant appointment until it went sour. So for a young coach, even with PSR, they might think, well, I've got nothing to lose. It's like Rude should have played the younger guys early because he would have nothing to lose. He'd win the fans over, and he could have turned the season around. When you think how poor Spurs and Man United have been, could we have kept in touch if we'd have done things differently? So I do think it's a really attractive proposition, our club at the moment.
It is. And I think I would not be adverse to this. And Manny just said again, he could be the Prel before we get the next Brendan. We signed a lot of Brendan's players under Prel. I think Prel's one of those, when we look back, I think he deserves a lot more credit than he actually got at the time.
Yeah, definitely. His coaching side of thing was brilliant. It's just that sometimes the team he picked in his formation, and he wasn't that brilliant when. Yeah, some of the criticism was when he gave his press conferences or post match. He just wasn't very dynamic and passionate.
He sounded a bit like Joey Barton doing a French accent, didn't he? That was the problem. Now,
Yeah, he did, and he came across like he really wasn't that bothered, which isn't the case. He
I
was a
think it's
really
just the way the French are, aren't they? You know.
yeah. Well, apart
Now,
from Eric Cantona, who gets very passionate.
yeah, that's true. Hey, what about Hitler? Do you fancy Hitler? I think he's had a
Well,
lot of
what?
bad press, to be honest with you.
Who's that? Hitler.
Hitler. Yeah, I think with a better press officer, he might have done better. Now, I'm not saying that this guy looks a bit like Hitler, but I think he's got a bit of the Adolf look going on there.
That hairstyle he's got the tash, but the hair is quite interesting as well.
It is, isn't it? You know. Now, this gentleman, of course, is the one that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Danny Roll.
Yeah, although Manny did say, "Oh yeah," but he was second in command under Hassan Louis thrust 9-0. But apparently, that Charlie Austin interview I watched, he said that he did most of the coaching for the team. Really good with the players, wanted to play dynamically, and does want to play the high press. And has been trying to develop Chef Wednesday into doing that.
Well, he's been linked with. All the rumours are that he says he's going to be leaving Sheffield Wednesday. Southampton were allegedly interested in him, but apparently they have moved on, and they are now looking at Will Still. They're still looking at Will Still. They haven't changed their mind. They're still looking after him. But Leicester, Will Still looking at. Never mind. But Leicester, you see Danny Roll's recent record. Let's have a look at this. We're up against a fair few German league teams, Bundesliga teams. And it's whether he thinks that the Championship, with the possibility of going up to the Premier League, is better than the also rans in the Bundesliga. 89 matches as Sheffield Wednesday manager. He's won 34 of them. He's drawn 19. He's lost 36. He's got a win percentage of 38, which, look, we're not knocking what we would give. That's 3 times better than Ruud van Wanker boy.
No.
Points per game, 1.4. So, you know, this guy. And look at the shit that Sheffield Wednesday were in when he took over.
I think he's done brilliant with his budget, because that's the thing. I mean, you've got to remember that. I mean, Maresca nearly blew it, but he had the best, most expensive squad in the Championship. We should have gone up automatically, basically. You could have brought us up, Chris. Even to be honest, at a stretch, even Manny could have brought us up.
To be honest with you, I think we would have got fined more, because his team talks would have gone over way past the start of the game. The referee would have been banging on the home team door at 20 past 3. Are you not ready yet, Manny? Hi, Manny. Daedalus has just said then, I thought Still was committed to Southampton. He is. We're not looking at Will Still, unfortunately.
But so the budget that some of these lower to mid-table Championship sides, they are very impressive with how they use the resources they've got. And I do really like him, and I do think we ought to look like Will Still. There's a few people that obviously everybody will get mentioned, but there's certain few in a bracket of intelligent technical managers with fresh ideas, well-founded.
They're all coming out now. Heafy says, roll with it.
Hey!
I think it's going downhill now. Right, let's move on to the next one. Now, this is a bit of a bugbear of mine here. Mr. Harry Suter. This was in the Leicestershire Live, before anybody asked where we got it from. The clue again is there. Australian international centre-back, had a terrific record for Sheffield United before his loan spell was cut short by injury. The 26-year-old keeping 14 clean sheets in 20 starts. Like I say, I think if we'd put the whole of the Kleenex workforce in the back four, we couldn't have kept a clean sheet. See what I did there? Don't you join me, Manny. Manny, I thought better of you. I really did. Look, he's injured. And I don't understand why he hasn't made it at Leicester. He was bought, obviously, into that last period of buys under Brendan Rodgers. He came from Stoke with a good record. We then got relegated. Enzo didn't like him, although he had the experience of that division. I think, let's be honest with you, when you look at Vestergaard now, when you look at Cody now, I mean, this guy's an international. Why isn't he starting? I know he's injured, obviously, but surely we've got to keep a place open for him.
I think we have to be honest. I do think he's been treated poorly. It's like with Rodgers with Soyuncu and different managers. You know, Vestergaard with Rodgers. Some managers like some people, and they don't like, and other managers don't. But
I've never known a manager like Brendan Rodgers for buying players and then never playing them. Vestergaard.
Exactly. Yeah. And Vestergaard, it's like that's the thing about managers having too much power. You know, he did that, and then it's been a mess. And then Maresca giving Vestergaard an extension, and he leaves us with him, and he's bogged off somewhere else. So I do think he's young enough and capable enough, especially in the Championship. Can he make the step up? Ben Nelson is the obvious choice. So could he play with Ben Nelson?
Well, hold your horses there, young Wayne. You have mentioned him. Nelson to Chelsea, Maresca and Admira. Surely, I would imagine, to bolster their English homegrown percentage. I would keep Suter over Vestergaard, definitely, Scott. Now, that was in the Telegraph. That was... who's the guy that does the Telegraph?
John Purser.
That's him. And he pretty much is one of those that if he says something, you actually go and go, oh. Now, Yahoo, and you bet you didn't even know Yahoo Sports was still going. And he used to be a musician, didn't he? Yehudi Menuhin. Sorry.
It's after the watershed, Chris. You can do.
I apologise. That was goddamn awful. There's no excuses. I will go and flog myself after the show was ended. Yahoo says.
It's like those fancy football names, isn't it, Chris?
Yes, it is.
Tika Mo Salah.
Yes, I know. Brilliant. Chelsea's interest, it says here, moving on and trying to get a little bit of sense back into the show. Chelsea's interest in Ben Nelson is another needless addition in a disjointed transfer policy. It's not often that I very rarely go on Yahoo Sports if I'm honest with you. But isn't that sensible?
I would say and it's like Kiernan Dewsbury Hall. You're thinking, well, you wonder what Maresca said to Kiernan. I know that people say he had to go with Maresca for the PSR to balance everything out with the PSR, but you're playing regular first team football and then you go and you're just a cup player coming on off the bench. He's got to be unhappy. So hopefully Nelson would, because like to make a sale, the players got to want to go first and foremost.
Yeah.
They've got to want to move. Do they want to move down to London? Do the family want them to move down London?
As a youngster, though, and I understand Maddison going to Tottenham, because it is the bright lights of London, and he's possibly thinking, I'm not going to be Jamie Vardy and playing when I'm 38. I'll be lucky maybe if I get to 32. You want to get the money in. Well, you can. Now, let's say, for example, I mean, he won't be on an awful lot, but, how much money is enough money? That's the question, isn't it? But I'd hate to lose this guy. Oxford United, where he was on loan at before he got injured, said he's too good for Leicester.
They loved him, didn't they? They absolutely loved Ben Nelson. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. If he's going to Chelsea, then this guy could be going off to Notts County. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who is he? Nottingham Forest transfer news as promising Leicester City youngster linked with City ground move. Teenage forward. A forward! Oh, we're letting him go, possibly. Sorry, that was my Brian Blessing moment. Teenage forward, Lorenz Hutchinson, has been impressing at youth level for the relegated Foxes. His eye-catching performance for the club's under-18s has apparently attracted plenty of admirers, with the Reds among them. Leicester is said to be keen to get the 17-year-old tied down to a professional contract. Just tie him down so he can't go. And I've held talks on that front, but with no agreement in place, other clubs are ready to pounce. Forest are well aware of Hutchinson, and this is in the Daily Mail, although this is in the Nottinghamshire Live, which, as you can see, is the Nottinghamshire sister paper of the Mercury and Leicestershire Live. The Reds are said to be one of a number of Premier League teams watching developments regarding the youngster's contract situation. Again, if he was to go, let's be honest with you, Forest are in Europe in some form next season. I think what you're going to look at, though, and I know it's easy for us to say that because we're not getting the chance to, I've left jobs to work for better companies, so I can't say that these players shouldn't go, but you have to think: will you be better off at Leicester?
Yeah, and it's like the crazy situation that they can't sign contracts, like Rob Tanner said earlier, was it yesterday, until, is it 17, 18, but so clubs can come in. Is it Train only Liverpool had, and they're still fighting?
Rob Tanner said the other day, because it was in because it was in the Athletic, about Monga signing a contract.
Yeah.
At 16, you can sign them to a schoolboy contract or something. So that's the first almost professional contract.
Yeah.
And this guy's 17, so he can be signed.
Yeah, because Liverpool had that guy, and we're still waiting for the money from Liverpool from that.
Yeah,
not paid any money at Leicester. So at that age, it's just that it is a situation. We've had players join us that haven't been playing for Leicester from 8 years old, and it's just something that happens. Players move around, but I do think if we develop into a club that allows younger people to develop, then we are attractive, because you don't want to go to a big club because you get swallowed by a big club. If you go to a big club, how many brilliant players have they got on the books? Like Golding that never gets a game, and different things like that. So that's, as a family and support network, it's a big decision for these young men to make. And it's like, I do think Monga does feel loved at Leicester, and I think he believes he's
probably he is if he watches this show, isn't he?
yeah. Well,
hang on a second. 1 minute 14:25 if you're playing Monga Bingo this evening.
Well, when he came on at Newcastle, I got an instant man crush, and like me and my brother said, what a fantastic player.
No, he is. You're totally right. The problem is, next season, these are the sort of players we could probably do with if we say I've got a transfer embargo. The problem is, no clubs are going to come in and offer us money for Bobby de Cova-Reid.
No, they're not.
And what have you. So these are the players that we're likely to lose. One, please, God, let this be true. If this is true, I will become a born-again Christian. I will go to church every Sunday. I will cancel my Sunday morning radio show and I will go to church and I will take the wine and the bread and everything. Please, God, like I say, I'll do whatever you want me to do. About phase could be going. Oh, please. Sorry,
You
did
don't
I?
mean that, Chris. You've got a bromance going on with that Faz. You have. Don't you try to deny it. Oh.
You were expecting me, Mr. Bond? Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know what I've drunk tonight, but I want more of it.
Was there a rumour that he says, I'm not going anywhere? I don't know whether I dreamt it in a bad nightmare.
No, you didn't. No,
Where
unfortunately.
he says, I'm not going anywhere. I want to fight for my place. I want to be the captain. And I didn't imagine that then.
You didn't, but I don't think it was from a particularly reliable source. It was like me putting it out on the Leicester Till I Die Facebook that, Stockport County have come in and bought him. I think it was something like that. But look, Lazio were interested in him in January and we wouldn't sell.
Well, his value's obviously gone up, Chris, hasn't it? It's a good decision.
Well, no, they could get him cheaper now because he's relegated. We're relegated. So he could be available. Are you ready for this? For 8.4 million. Now, I'm not saying that that's overpriced, but if you top the 8 off and just have the 0.4 million, that's probably what he's worth.
Do you know what? If you can get, it's like Vestergaard, he's still playing internationally, so you can get good money for these. And if you can get good money for these, Faz, when he's on his game, like you gave him man of the match, Chris.
Once out of, and he won't get it the weekend. I bet you that. So once out of 38 games, I gave him man of the match. I mean, come on, that's not a good record.
To remind you every now and again, Chris. Every now and again, we'll bring it up.
You won't let me forget it. I mean, Dorco says there, I suppose the transfer embargo will prevent us selling players as well. No, it won't, unfortunately, because if we go under the transfer embargo, means we can re-register players because it's not a registration embargo, but we can't. We might have to sign if we're under a management or business plan. Then we might have to sign. I, for one. When was he last on? Apart from that one game, which was it Southampton? I can't think now.
Might have been, yeah.
And to say that I've given him man of the match against the second worst team in Premier League history isn't, a fantastic accolade. But yeah, £8.40, Scott. You're right. No, I just can't remember when he has been on his game.
No, the thing is, if you can get 8.4 million for him, a lot of his fans were saying, just let him go for free. Let that guy go for free as a walk-in catastrophe. So if you can get 7 million for Vestergaard, 8.5 million, it's going to help us with the financial stuff.
Are you
give room for Koulibaly or Kohli and all those people to come through, Nelson?
Are you thinking this?
Let it go, let it go.
Yes, definitely. Send them out on, send D Cordova-Reid out on loan, or
or just buy his contract out.
Yeah, it's time for a good clear out. And the thing is, we have got really good players. The thing is, in the Championship, all these players that are not good in the Premier, if we literally played the team that played this season, they would all look brilliant, quite brilliant in the Championship. Yeah. But that is just short-term, blindfold, deluded thinking.
It's like, I would say, it's a bit like Christmas afternoon when you've just had a huge Christmas meal and, with all the turkey and all the trimmings and probably a starter and Christmas pudding afterwards, and you sat down to watch The King now and you're thinking, I need a good clear out. That's a sort of feeling, isn't it?
So you're lightning fast to a load of excrement, Chrissy.
Sorry, that's just my toilet humour. Anyway,
It's a real love-hate relationship you've got with Faz, isn't it?
He's shit. I'm sorry. I can't help it. He's shit. Who would I sooner keep, Wout Faes or Bobby Dakova-Reid? Bobby Dakova-Reid. That's how bad he is. You know. Right. Last piece of news, and it's not particularly just Leicester related, but I'm a little bit confused by this. Confused? You will be. Go compare. Premier League set to introduce rule allowing only captains to speak to referees. Now, I kind of thought that this had been put in a few seasons ago.
So did I. Because, during COVID, when there were no crowds,
yeah,
they had a meeting, didn't they, saying, look, basically, you've got to understand that if you're effing and jeffing, everybody's going to hear it.
Because remember Newcastle were... Not Newcastle, Man United. I mean, they did what I would call the 7th Cavalry routine. Basically surrounded the referee in a circle and all the trailers and caravans and everything.
Yeah, when the referee was about to blow the whistle on 94 minutes, they all surrounded him, so he blew the whistle after 98.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought this was already in, but apparently not. They just tried it apparently somewhere in Europe or a European competition. And good, I would say.
Yeah, good. Yeah. What's working for other organisations, bring it in. Don't be stubborn and try and do everything yourself and get it wrong. Like, what's the video? VAR. I mean, rugby and all those other, rugby's had it off to a T for donkey's years. Premier League, we're going to do it our own way, completely screwed it up.
Yeah, indeed. Let's not go on to VAR, otherwise we'd be here for another 5 hours. But that's it. That's the back pages this week. Wayne, you are a gentleman, sir. Thank you very much for coming on and helping out. Guys, if you would be so kind as to click that like button, it really does help the channel, and subscribe if you're new, and click the notification bell. And for $1.99 a month, it's very, very cheap. You can become a subscriber and you can support the channel financially. You can't even get half a pint for $1.99. Come on, guys. Please also thank you for joining in the chat, and say thank you to Wayne. Thank you if you are watching this on catch-up. Please add your comments below on YouTube. And if you've been listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much for lending me your ears. All I've got to say, Wayne, is may your God go with you.
And yours, Chris.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.